Hi, my name is Philip Reed, and I am the President and CEO of Phoenix National Business Group. Today, I'm going to give a presentation as to what my company does, what we stand for, and what we are about. Phoenix National Business Group is an online marketing, media, and production company that produces websites, professional social media platforms, and online video productions for companies, places of worship, and entrepreneurs. Our programs also includes a unique series of talk shows and online events that empower the public with information that will improve their lives, with positive, uplifting messages reflecting the love of God and His vision of grace and restoration for the world. We have and are pulling together a network of entrepreneurs and leaders that seek to change the world with the fundamental belief that without hope, dreams die. Not only do we develop and produce these programs, we also establish platforms for distribution through our social media presence, which has thousands of viewers throughout the internet. We also have our own channel, PNN, Phoenix National Network, that goes out to millions of people across the world on Roku and Amazon TV. Our motto is, when you win, we win, because we believe in helping normal people and businesses do extraordinary things by developing, creating, and publishing their ideas to the world. This is what Phoenix National Business Group does, and we do it proudly. If you would like more information about the services and products that we offer, please feel free to visit our website at phoenixnationalbusinessgroup.com, or you can give us a call at 914-297-PNBG. That is 914-297-7624. We do look forward to hearing from you, and see you soon. Phoenix National Business Group is now offering their online services on Roku and Amazon TV for only $99.99 per month. This is a limited time offer, so give us a call at 914-297-7624 for more information, or visit our website at phoenixnationalbusinessgroup.com. That is phoenixnationalbusinessgroup.com. See you soon. All right, welcome back, everybody, to our Power Up Week. And of course, we are here with Ramona Thomas today. Today, we're talking about being prepared, preparing financially for 2021. And we are going to have a two-day session on that with Ramona Thomas. Those of you who watched her last time were very receptive. We had over about 2,000 views on that. So really exciting to have her back. And today she's just going to be really talking about getting ourselves together financially for 2021. We know it's been a tough time. The year 2020 has been tough for a lot of people, but let's see if we can make a difference for the upcoming year. Ramona, it's always great to have you on. Welcome back.
Thank you, Phil. It's always great to be with you. Thank you for having me back. And I hope today we can share some inspiration for people who've really just kind of been struggling with the year we've been having.
Absolutely. So I'm not going to hold back I know we're going to do a quick Q&A afterwards, so you can go ahead and get started. No problem.
So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
It's coming up so far. Yep, there it is.
Okay,
Reset.
so let's start the slideshow here. I've talked to, so let me introduce myself, right? Before I jump right on into the content, I'm like so excited about it. I'm Ramona Thomas. By day, I am a financial advisor and I really work with individuals, organizations, a lot of entrepreneurs around their money. I basically provide investment advice and comprehensive financial planning. So essentially, I empower people to feel in control over their finances. And this is actually a great segue because this year, a lot of people have felt like they'd had no control, right? I've talked to a number of people with the pandemic and the civil unrest that's happening across the country and, what's happening in politics. A lot of people just are really in despair and just feeling hopeless. I was thinking about the intro video, right, where it says, where there's no hope, dreams die. I'd like to say, where there is hope, dreams live, right? So we want to, keep it in the positive affirmation. So I've talked to a number of people that said, hey, Ramona, we just really want to reset. We want to do over. Like if we could push do over for 2020 and just jump right to 2021, that's what we want to do. So I want to talk about, for those of you that we've all been affected by COVID in one way or another, or just this year. Here are some, I have 5 tips. I'm going to talk about 5 things that have happened this year to each of us, I believe, in different ways. And then what are some tips that we can take from 2020 and go into 2021 with just a more positive attitude, positive outcomes and results. So let's get started. The news of 2020 is the coronavirus pandemic. And as I just said, there's not a person on the planet who hasn't been affected by COVID in one way or another, whether it's personally or professionally. If you're a business owner, you've been affected by COVID. We're at the point where we're now 8 months in. We've been living with COVID for 8 months, and it looks like it's going to be here for a while. And so, if you haven't made any adjustments financially and you're feeling a little stressed, we're starting to hear people talk about COVID fatigue, right? They're tired of working from home. There's all the stuff with the kids, in school 2 days, virtual 3 days. Like we're just, our whole lives feel, upside down. So I'm going to try to help us get right side up on some of those things. If you haven't made any adjustments financially, but you're feeling stressed or concerned about your financial future, if you've been laid off, if your business income is dried up, I need to say, though, that's not been the case for everyone. There have been some people who've done very well during COVID, depending on your business and what you do. There have been businesses that have prospered. So regardless of where you are and sort of struggling financially, or you've been doing okay, or just kind of holding on, here are a couple of tips to think about, since we know COVID's going to be with us for a while longer. If you're currently working and you like your job, think, is there a way to negotiate? Either renegotiate your salary, negotiate maybe a new position with the company that you work for. There are a number of companies that are hiring. And if you're in a company culture that you like, figure out if there's a way to stay. And if your hours have been cut or things like that, just, I would start with where you are. Start with your current boss, your supervisor, and find out if there are opportunities in the company where you are, if you like where you are. If you don't like where you are, then this is a great time to assess, with the new year coming, is this time to make a move? If you are one of those people who've been laid off, or your business has been affected negatively financially, think about a part-time job. Again, a number of companies are hiring. It's okay, to do what you need to do to make it. So if you need to figure out how to feed your family, how to pay your mortgage, how to pay your bills, it's okay, to take on extra hours, take on a part-time job, a side hustle, gig, whatever you need to do. And now there are a lot of ways to do that. There are a lot of different websites and platforms where you can do consulting services and contract services. So, definitely look into those. I'm thinking about like the Task Rabbits of the world and other platforms where you can offer your services. And if you have a skill, if you're good at something, you have a skill or a talent, use it. Use it to launch a business, grow a business. Again, it could be sort of the side hustle, or the gig economy is a big part of our economy now, where people are doing other kinds of things and providing services. So if you have a service-based skill, you're good at consulting or sales or coaching, and it can be around anything. If you're a good listener, if you have a knack at, for me, it's finance and helping people really, find money in their budgets. Like, whatever you're good at, think about a way of doing that in a way that generates income for you. And if you make a product, like if you make, great, we're heading into winter. So if you make sweaters or ponchos, or if you knit, that's a great way to think about turning some of those things into income. And there are a lot of different platforms that you can use to sell those things online. I said this earlier, if you're in an industry or position you don't like, it's a great opportunity to think about transitioning into a new field. With so many things still very virtual and remote, it's a great time to learn a trade or a skill, or to get certified in something, since a lot of these classes are now online. It's, if you want to get licensed, and whether it's um, one of the trades or a service industry, it's a great time to do your research and do that while you're working from home, if you're still working from home. So, one way to think about how to sort of boost your finances is generating income. And I just shared some tips on ways that you can do that. The other way is control what you spend. So there are two ways to kind of affect your cash flow. If you missed that seminar, I'm going to refer you back to it. You can find it on the website. I spent a lot of time going over cash flow, but it's so important part of our daily lives. So if you're struggling trying to figure out ways to bring in more income, think about ways that you can save money. So how we bring in money, or businesses that have been affected, whether it's negatively or positively, income isn't the only thing that's changed for a lot of people this year. How we spend money has changed, and what we spend it on has changed, right? So now we see so much happening virtually, getting groceries delivered, getting your wholesale, like your Costco orders delivered. We're seeing so much more of that. But there are other ways that you can think about saving money. So I'll give you a couple of examples. If you're still working from home, my question to you is, what are you doing with your transportation money? Right. So if you live in the Northeast and you normally drive, what are you doing with your gas money, with your toll money? What are you doing with your MetroCard money if you commute? What are you doing with that? Are you redirecting that somewhere? And if so, where? If you don't, then again, go back to the session I did on budgeting, because you want to be able to track where you are spending your money. So think about where you're redirecting. Like if you're not working, if you're not commuting, you're working from home, what are you doing with the money that you would normally spend out, right? So think about your coffee and donut money that you would spend in the morning. For those of you that are, would buy lunch out or would meet friends for happy hour. If you're not doing any of those things, where are you redirecting those funds? I know a lot of people said, hey, Ramona, I'm not eating out as much because we can't, right? Some places, restaurants are still not open for dining, but we are supporting our local restaurants, our, restaurants in our community. So we're doing a little more takeout, but we're also cooking more. So while we're eating out less, maybe you're redirecting that money more towards groceries. But you should know where you're trimming the fat in your expenses, and if you're saving that, or if you're redirecting that to other places. Again, if you're working from home, I know a lot of people really boosted their internet because the kids need to be able to, be on Zoom and not have the freezing and all of that. But do you need all of the streaming services, right? And you just really think about, are there places in your daily expenses where you can cut back if you've been negatively affected by the pandemic? So that was my first sort of event of 2020, and some things that we can do to kind of help strengthen our cash flow, and really kind of create these habits or new habits and take them into 2021. So ways to generate more income, ways to save money. The next thing we've been hearing a lot about throughout the year is the stock market, right? So when we all started sheltering in place, The market did a real slide, and I'll be honest, it was one of those days. Like the third day in a row, I had a headache. I was just like, oh my gosh, like I just had been talking to clients, making sure they were okay, and fielding a lot of calls from people who, just were checking their 401ks every day, and it was like, don't do that, just stop. So that first week or two was really difficult, and we've been hearing for months about the stock market going up and down. And what I want to say about that is it's just important to know that even outside of a pandemic and even outside of an election year, market volatility is normal. The market tends to rise and fall, certainly during election year, but also during non-election years. And it has, during an election year, there's definitely a history of it peaking sort of right before an election. Like you don't know if it's going to be the incumbent, if it's going to be, a new president. But typically you'll see a lot of peak, within 20 days before the election and a couple of weeks after. I know this year, for a lot of different reasons, feels a lot more volatile with everything that's happening in our society, and certainly with the ongoing pandemic. The big question that I've been getting is sort of, hey, we keep hearing about the stock market going up and down. What does that mean for me? Right. And if you're not invested in the stock market, if you don't have a stock portfolio, you think, oh, that really doesn't affect me. If you have a 401k, or if you have a retirement plan, or if you're investing in your company's, retirement assets, there's a really, or retirement plan, there's a really good chance that those funds are being invested in one way or another in the market. So the important thing to know is that returns will vary month to month. Certainly in this year, election years have their own patterns. Typically in spring, when you're looking at the primaries and we're, in different parties, you're trying to shake out who's going to actually run. But also in the fall, as we head up to election day, and we are 6 days away. So, the market was down earlier in the week. Expect that up and down, for the next couple weeks, even after the election. We don't know what the results are going to be, but whoever becomes president will certainly inherit a lot of different things. They're going to inherit COVID. They're going to inherit a divided nation. And, there's going to be a lot of work to do, and it's going to take some time for investors to kind of figure out and settle into a good pattern. But I just want you to know it's normal. I think the most important thing, and this is one of the things I work with clients on, is it's really important when you're investing, when you're thinking about even your 401k, to have a very long-term perspective. So when you think about investing, people want to time the market. Oh, the market's low today, I'm going to do this. The market's high today, I'm going to do this. And there are investors that do that. I think for average folks, I don't recommend that, because that can lead to a lot of, anxiety and ulcers and things like that. But the key here is that time in the market is more important than timing the market. And I'll talk a little bit about this, but basically being in the market long term historically, you're going to see results than if you're in and out and you're trying to time it and, do the big sell off. And, there are people who are really skilled at that and they do a great job. But average investors, just think long term. You want to think 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And when you look at the stock market historically, over those periods of time, there's usually growth, and it's usually more than what you would see in your average bank account. So that's sort of my tip for the market. Volatility is normal. Time in the market is more important than trying to time the market. So I talked a little bit about the election. And I know a lot of people are thinking, okay, what's going to happen if, President Trump wins again? What does that mean if Vice President Biden wins? What does that mean? And just a couple of things I want to talk about. I'm going to share some historical data to kind of put things in perspective. Since 1900, 16 of 20 presidential terms have resulted in positive returns for the stock market. So 16 out of 20 presidential terms, 4-year terms, have resulted in positive results for the stock market. That bears repeating. Sorry, I wanted to say that a second time. While there are a lot of other factors that drive market performance, An administrators or administration's policies can certainly add or detract from the market's momentum. So, does it matter? Yes, for a lot of reasons. But long term, again, historically, whether a Democrat or Republican is in the White House, historically, 16 out of 20 of those presidential terms have been positive. Data show that whether the White House is, Republican or Democrat, the markets tend to rise in any given year. Since 1928, so for 72 years, there have been, over the past 72 years since we've had the data, there have been 68 positive years. 38 of those years was with a Democrat as leader in chief, um, and 30 of those years was with a Republican as president. Now, conversely, there have been 25 negative years in the market, 10 of those with a Democrat at the helm or as president, and 15 of those years with a Republican at the helm. So, what I'm trying to say is that long term, the market will adjust to who's in office. But most of those years tend to be positive. And that's great because that means we're seeing growth in our economy over time. And I think that's the most important thing. Like I was saying with the market, you want to have a long-term horizon. It's not something you look at every day. I mean, you do, but you don't. You want to look 5, 10, 15-year horizons because typically that's what you're thinking about in terms of investing. Since the 1990s, most of our lifetimes, for people who are tuning in, the average market returns have been positive. But again, each administration since that time, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, each has faced their own set of unique circumstances, in our society, in our economy. But I will say over time, the average return for that president, no matter who it is 11.8%. So the average return for a president, regardless of party, is you're going to see, we've seen, not going to see, we don't know the future, but we've seen 11.8% returns, which is actually really good. The average return for a Republican is 10.2%, and the average return for a Democrat president is 14.4%. So the takeaway here, again, this is sort of how do we go into 2021 more positively about our finances. What I'm saying here is that long term, if we're looking over a presidential term, not a month, not a week, but we're looking over the term, typically those returns are positive. Okay, so now my fourth tip. So we talked about COVID, ways to look at our income. We talked about the stock market, what that means for our portfolios, our 401ks. We talked about the election, what that means for us financially in our investments long term. Now I'm going to talk about money, savings. We have the Benjamins here on the screen. When I work with clients, one of the first things I recommend is that people have a cash reserve or an emergency fund if they don't have one. Some people do, some people don't. And normally when I talk about a cash reserve and emergency fund, people think, when you hear emergency, you think like the most tragic thing, car accident, something devastating. Nobody thinks of a global pandemic as an emergency. But it was, right? When you look at what happened, how many people have gotten furloughed, how many people have been laid off, how many businesses are suffering, how many industries are still suffering. If you work in the entertainment industry, sports, we've seen so many industries that rely on face-to-face gatherings and in-person gatherings that are still really struggling. Event planning, wedding industry, all tourism, all of those things are still really suffering. But no one thinks about the need for an emergency fund until an emergency happens, which is why it's important to do it when you're not in the middle of an emergency. So I always recommend, saving. And there are 3 tips that I'm going to give you on savings. If you don't have an emergency fund or a cash reserve, start one. Start one today. Start with your next paycheck. And it doesn't, people, one of the reasons people don't save is because we start big. I'm going to save when I get my bonus. I'm going to save when I get the big thing. Save when you get your paycheck. Like, you want to create a habit of savings, even if you have to start small. $25 is nothing, Ramona. But if you save $25 a week every week for 50 weeks, that adds up. So I would say start, because if you start small, it's better than not starting at all. The second tip is save regularly. Even again, like maybe you have like that month where that paycheck where you pay your rent and your mortgage. I know things are really tight, right? Because it's eating up most of your paycheck. So maybe you're not able to save as much, but still just tuck $5 away just to get in the habit of saving every paycheck. And then that other paycheck that doesn't go to the mortgage or doesn't go to the rent, if you can squeeze a little bit more out of that. We all have spending habits. Like, we're really clear about what we need to pay. That credit card, that student loan, that car note, that travel fund. If you have a timeshare, rent, we're really, groceries, we're really clear about what we need to pay and what we need to spend. We're not always clear about what we need to save. And so I always just, like we have spending habits, create saving habits. So find a way of saving every time you generate income. If you work for yourself, every time you get that you invoice, be clear, 1%, 2%, 10%, whatever it is that you're saving, make sure you save. And then the other thing is set goals or milestones. So I normally would recommend 3 to 6 months, depending on the family situation, of emergency fund. That's 3 to 6 months of your expenses. So you add up all of your expenses for the month, your rent, your groceries, your utilities, everything, your car insurance, you add it up. If it's 5,000 a month, you want to multiply that by 6 months. You want to have a cash reserve of $30,000. And here's why. And a lot of people experience that this year. If you're furloughed, if you're let go, you want to be able to maintain your lifestyle until something else happens. So, you can still trim back, but you want to be able to keep your lifestyle expenses, your living expenses during that time in between jobs. So that's the real, one of the real purposes of having an emergency fund. So you want to set some goals and milestones. So if your expenses are 5,000 a month and you don't have any savings, and $30,000 seems like a lot of, Ramona, there's no way I'm going to even do that in a year. It's okay. Break it up. So maybe it'll take you 5 years, but at the end of each year, you'll have $6,000. At the end of the second year, you have $12,000. And then if an emergency happens, you need a new washing machine, you need a new refrigerator, we needed a new stove this summer. You can get those things and not panic, not have to worry about where it's coming from. So the key here is, if you don't have an emergency fund, if you don't have a cash reserve, start saving one. If you're unemployed, because I know there are a lot of people who are watching who are unemployed, who are relying on unemployment. Here's what I would say: do what you can. Your livelihood, survival is really important. When you're in survival mode, you have to do whatever you need to do to feed your family, right? You got to pay your rent, you have to buy your groceries, you have to pay insurance. Do those things. If there's anything left over, tuck a little away for you. If you're in, I'm big on giving. If you're able to do that, fine. If you can't, take care of your family. Again, even if you get in the habit of, $2 a week. I didn't put this on the slide, but you guys can Google it or research it on the internet. There's a thing called a 52-week savings challenge. If you look that up, it's a great way to start saving. And I don't recommend waiting until January. Like, I'm not really big on the New Year's resolutions and I'm going to wait. I'm big on now, like, because now is what we have. The future is not, promised. There's no guarantees, and so I always say start now. So if you want to start saving now, start this week. The 52-week savings challenge is basically, you save $1 the first week, you save $2 the second week, $3 the third week. So each number of weeks, that's the number of dollars that you save. Again, I'm not big on waiting until January. I'm big on, if you're able, start tucking that away now. And then the last tip I have for our reset of 2020 and how to go into 2021 with great lessons learned and moving forward in a positive way is, I know we're not able to do all the things things that we love to do. We're not working freely and going to school freely and traveling freely. We're wearing masks and we're doing all these things. We're seeing the numbers every day, the cases going up, and unfortunately, people passing away, and real lives devastated, right? It's not just numbers we're seeing like real families whose lives are never going to be the same. Here's what I would say to this. We're in a time that I believe, 10, 15 years from now, we're going to look at very differently. For those of you that are home with your kids who are not commuting, we may not ever have this time again, right? Especially if you live in a place where you're commuting an hour, you're getting back 2.5 hours a day. Find things that make you happy. Do things that bring you joy. I've been talking to people, and someone I talked to, he's a lawyer. He's like, Ramona, my wife and I have coffee in the morning. We were never able to do that because we were both running off to catch our trains, right, to the city. People who have small kids, and I know we've heard a lot of the negative about the kids in the Zoom in school, but I've been talking to a lot of people, especially fathers, who are like, yeah, I'm home with my kids. We get to have dinner together every night. I get to watch them do things that I would normally miss. And so I just encourage you to, even in this time, find the things that bring you joy, that make you happy, things with your family, things with your friends. Find ways to connect with people. And there's a way to use technology to connect. I've met some of the most amazing people during the pandemic. We've never been in the same room, but I've made some of the most amazing connections, people I'm keeping in my life for the rest of my life because of who they are. So, be who you are, but use the technology as a tool. Zoom, FaceTime, if you're on, Android, there's all these other apps that allow you to do face to face. There's still ways that you can have meaningful and genuine and authentic connections with people. So, see, I know you thought the last tip was going to be all about money, but it isn't. It's all about who we are as people, which is, it really shapes our mindset, and our mindset really affects what we do around our money. So, I'm trying to help, with the mindset here. And then the last thing I would say, and I kind of touched on this, is to the extent that you can take advantage of the space that we're in, right? A lot of people have been doing home projects, the DII. I could never say this, DIY, right? The do it yourself projects. My sister has had a list of those, right? Things you've always wanted to do at home: paint, take that old carpet up, make home feel more like home. Just take advantage of the time that we're in, space that we're in, and do the things that make your heart happy, that make your spirit happy. That's going to affect how you look at your work, how you look at your relationships, and how you look at your money. So I hope that was helpful. I am going to end there, and I will stop sharing so we can come back, and I'll take any questions that you have.
I don't have a question, but I want to say this is I've had a list of questions before you started, and you hit every single one of them all the way down the line. So I don't have a question, but I do have a comment on, especially on the last thing you talked about. I would have never met Phil or Mona, if it weren't for COVID. And
Right.
Ramona and I are in Master Networks. We're in different chapters. We would not have met had it not been for COVID. So there is a lot of connections going on, and will be going on as long as we're zooming.
I think that's the truth. I mean, I love the presentation, by the way, Ramona. That was amazing, right? That
Thank
was a
you.
really, as always. I mean, you have so much information packed into your presentations that I believe that it is imperative for people to just kind of like pay attention to those. But my question is basically, I mean, you've answered. You it was so thorough that you have to really kind of dig for questions here. But my primary question was the ending, right? What inspired you to come up with that as an ending? Because most people would have ended with the big bang of you in the 12 steps to gaining $1 million. by the end of 2021, why did you end on that note? What was the inspiration for that?
So that's a great question, and I forgot to share so that last slide with the pretty flowers were
Uh-huh.
actually mine. So what made me think about that is very personal, and just again my interactions with my clients and people that I've met, where we've had very powerful conversations about money, but about who we are as people. So that last slide was actually my COVID journal. And how it came
Wow.
about was, when we were sheltering in place, the sort of, do you go outside? Do you not go outside? You wear a mask and all of that. And I remembered I said to my sister, I was like, going outside seems like a privilege now, because, it was
Right.
one of those things we used to like, and this is around April, right? When spring
Mhm.
was coming, and I felt it was the first spring we're actually watching from the window, right? Because we're not outside as much. I wasn't outside as much. And so going outside felt like a privilege. It was something that I certainly took for granted, to just get up, get dressed, and go outside whenever you wanted. Then it was like you had to prepare. Like, do I have my mask? You see people coming. Do I cross the street? Like, just all these kind of things we never thought about. But one of the things that happened was, it was spring,
Mhm.
and in our neighborhood, with the landscaping and the beautiful flowers, one of the things I realized was that even in COVID, and we were hearing about all the hospitalizations and all the death, we were hearing all the negative things. I had to be reminded that things were still growing, and that
Right.
there was still life, and that there was still beauty in the earth. And we were in that season of spring, and I needed to be, and it was one of those, like, I just was so thankful. And so when I would go outside and I would see pretty flowers, and I know people in the neighborhood would stop and look at me because I have on my workout clothes, and I'd take my phone off my arm, and I'd take pictures of the flowers, because I wanted to remember that there was still life, and that there was still growth, and that there was still beauty, because it's so easy to be overwhelmed by the negative. And so that's where that came from, Phil. Like, that was inspiring. It inspired me to
Wow.
to be positive, and to share that positivity with the people that I interact with, and to try to kind of, be that to everyone, and to the extent that, that I could. So that's just me. So that was sort of
Oh,
a moment thing.
it's not just you. Someone said COVID has turned us all into dogs. Like we're happy to go outside. We're happy when new people show up at the door, and we love going on car rides. So it's like now we know what the dog feels like. We're like, I get to go outside. I get to go outside. It's like,
Yes. Yes.
okay, Phil,
I
follow that
love
one.
your scenarios, man, but it is so true. It is so true, especially when you're like working from home, and you are just so for in the beginning you're like, wow, I get to work from home, yeah, and then after
That
three
wears
weeks
out
you're
quick.
like, yeah. I would love to go into office at least once this week,
Yeah,
you know.
that was
uh,
fun for a minute. Okay.
yeah, but it's so true. I look forward to going outside, and you start seeing things in a different light. Like I started taking walks in the morning, and it's surprising all the things you miss when you drive past somewhere versus when you're walking. And so you're walking, and I'm seeing they have this nice park right across the street from where I live, and I never really paid attention to it. I just kind of just drove past it and took it for. I was like, wow, this is actually nice. So you pay attention to these little details, and you just appreciate life a little bit more. But I think the financial end of it, as we're talking about it today, you know, um, even if we're going through a hard time financially, there are things around you that you can appreciate. That's what I took away mostly from this, right? Is that even though we're trying to balance everything out, take a second and appreciate the life that you have, the people that you have around you, the people that you've met, that you wouldn't have met otherwise, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah, and there are good things that are happening. There's some good things that are happening around now, that after COVID, because it's going to end at some point, right? After this is all done, you get actually to meet these people in person.
Yeah, I miss
They're like,
hugging
wow, you're
people.
real.
Yeah. Yeah. I really, I'm a hugger, and I miss that,
Me
a
too.
Yeah.
lot. I would say, I would add to that, Phil, is that, even if this has been a tough year for you financially, the encouragement is that, you know, in the grand scheme of life, almost everything is temporary. I mean, like, almost everything is temporary. Not everything, but almost, right?
Almost
So if
everything.
you've had a hard year, just know that think about the years that weren't hard, right? So things don't those kind of things don't last forever. If you think about it as seasons, right? So where, maybe 2020, the whole year is winter, it feels cold and dark, but that's not gonna last. It may last 2 years, it may last 3 years, but it's not gonna last forever. And the key around the mindset is remembering that, because the mindset affects how we make decisions about money and what decisions we make. So that is, I would say, that is the other message I would want to leave with people. In addition to my pretty flowers.
Pretty fun. Can you
Well,
guys
you know
hear
what?
me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mona.
Good
Hi,
morning. Hi.
Mona.
Hi, Ramona. Thank you for that. I caught myself sitting throughout your whole talk, kind of nodding to myself, listening in. And I work with Ramona. She is my financial advisor. And I can say that our relationship is not just, um, financial advisor. I see her as a friend now as well. And the connection that we've developed, and for me to have, to share these things with her has been a huge step for me, and she's been a huge support. And I really appreciate that. So thank you for that. But I read this quote this morning, and thinking about what you were saying and what Phil was saying, it's all about perspective, I think. And the quote says, the house that, or the job that you don't like, the unemployed would like. The house that you don't want, that you're tired of, the homeless would love to have. And, the food that you don't like, the hungry. It's all about perspective. And I love what you said. And I've done the same as you. When I'm out walking my dog, like, my dog is going to be pulling me, and I'm like, no, I have to take photo of this beautiful flower, But he's like, no, I need to sniff over here. And I'm like, no, you wait, because this flower represents the beauty that we need to stop and have a look at. And for me, I hope that that's what this year has done. It's given people an opportunity, just like Phil, said himself, to just stop and just experience the beauty that is around us. So thank you
So
for sharing your flowers with us today.
And
Thank you,
to
Mona.
keep
I'm
in
sorry. Thank
Yeah.
you.
and to keep in what we've been learning, throughout these series, talk to the experts to get
Yes.
your answers. The stock market's going down. What do I do?
Absolutely.
Ramona's going to say, get off the ledge unless you're going to retire tomorrow. This too shall pass.
right, right.
And if you are going to retire tomorrow, you should have listened to Ramona 10 years ago and had that fund going. So, it's never too late to start. But again, talk to the experts. That's what they're there for, to walk you off the ledge and
Now
back
we
to
have we have
reality.
somebody that's a guest in the room. Lucien Rojas is a pastor, Apostle Lucien Rojas, and he had a question. He had a question he wanted to ask you, Ramona.
Yes.
Well, certainly, I thank you for the inspiration and for the encouragement and the empowerment. And not more so a question, but a comment that we look for opportunities. We look for opportunities and turn our obstacles into opportunity. And well, I'm 60 and retired, but yes, I have an IRA, and certainly I have an index fund. But out of the COVID, I heard you were saying that some good things can come out. You meet people that probably you would have never met. And what happened is that in March, when the market went down, I invested in stocks for the first time. So I'm like a late bloomer. I buy individual stock for the first time in the month of March. And guess what? They all went up. And so that's one of the things I believe in not just saving. Investing is more powerful than saving. While saving is good, we save to invest. And I don't mean to preach to the choir, but when the parable of the three men, one had 5 talents, one had two, and the other had one. The guy that saved his because of lack of creativity, he saved it. He was never commended for saving it. As a matter of fact, it was taken away from him. But the two that invested, they were rewarded with 100% increase. So I tell people, if we had invested earlier on in life, when the pandemic come, or if we had multiple streams of income, we'll be able to survive because the saving is going to run out. But once you have the investment, it's going to keep streaming in. Another thing happened with me as a pastor. I pastored a church in Brooklyn and never did a Facebook Live in my life. Talking about behind the curve. And in the month of March, when the pandemic came, as a matter of fact, my wife and I came down with the virus. I had to stream for the first time live on Facebook. And so if it wasn't for COVID-19, I would have never streamed live. And guess what happened? I was good at failing. Somebody once said, you fail forward. Your failure is not final. You fail your way into success. As Thomas Edison said, it's not that I failed 1,000 times. It was 1,000 steps of intervention. And so what happened, I came on Facebook Live and my God, I had to scamper. I was upside down one morning. While I was down, I was upside down. They said, Pastor, you upside down. And I said, that was embarrassing, but you learn, it was a learning curve. And so even in the virus now, we have bought 2 cameras and we are YouTube, Instagram, Facebook Live, and I'm streaming like one of the big shots. Earned, and it's okay to fail forward.
Right.
Some of the things that we look and hold our heads up and say, COVID, it's killing us, it's destroying us, but we can be creative even in the midst of the COVID and survive, and not only survive, but thrive. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
I was just going to, you are so absolutely right. I mean, just everything you said. And the investing is so important. That was why I talked about the market and having a long-term perspective. It's not the in and out. It's not like people think they're going to flip real estate. You're not going to flip a stock. Just having a long-term horizon. I will say, and I love the parable of the talents. I use it all the time. I refer to it in my life. In terms of investing and things like that. I will say too, it's when I talked about mindset, for some people, it's like baby steps. You have to get people in the mindset of saving, because some people just don't. And then, we're saving towards investing. And you're absolutely right. I didn't want to sort of overshower the tips, but one of the things I say to my clients a lot is, that 0.01% you're getting on your bank account, like that savings account, you're losing money every year because of inflation. It's not working for you. So you want to look at investing as a way of working. And I'm so glad that you shared the parable of towns. I love it. So thank you for that.
And I would like to know you, Ramona, because the stuff that you have, it's like down my alley, like-minded people. And, there's a saying that iron sharpeneth iron and deep call it unto deep.
Yes.
So, like mine. And if it's okay with that, I feel like
Yes.
Bill's going to connect us after.
That's the whole point of the program.
That's what we're here for.
That's the whole point of it. So anyway, we have to end abruptly because we have Frank coming on.
And
next.
I do have a 12 o'clock.
And so thank you everybody for watching. Please stay tuned because Frank is going to be coming on to share with us next. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.